Lydia stood by the kitchen sink, her hands lost in soapy water as rain poured outside. The sound of thunder filled the small house. The children were already in bed, and for a moment, the only noise was the rain tapping against the window. Then the front door burst open. David walked in, dripping wet, his briefcase hitting the floor with a loud thud. His face was hard, his eyes cold. "Lydia, I'm done pretending," he said sharply. She turned confused. "Pretending about what?" "This marriage," he snapped. "This life. You and the kids, you're holding me back." Lydia froze, her heart beating fast. "Holding you back from what, David? We're a family." He cut her off. "From being the man I'm meant to be. You've got no ambition, no spark. Just these kids and endless bills." He threw a pile of papers on the counter. Lydia looked down. Unpaid electricity, rent, school fees. David's voice was filled with anger. "You think love pays for electricity?" Her hands trembled. "I stood by you when you had nothing, David." His tone grew cold. "And now that I have something, I don't need you dragging me down." Tears filled Lydia's eyes. From the hallway, their daughter Ella stood quietly, holding her teddy bear. Her small face showed fear and confusion. "David," Lydia whispered, "are you leaving us?" He picked up his suitcase. "You can manage. You always do. I need to breathe." He didn't look back as he walked out. The door slammed hard behind him, echoing through the house. The rain outside grew heavier, matching the storm inside Lydia's heart. For a long time, she stood still, unable to move. The kitchen light flickered. The sound of rain and her own breathing filled the silence. Then came a small voice. "Mommy, is Daddy coming back?" Ella asked, her eyes full of tears. Lydia knelt down and pulled her daughter close. Her son joined them, sleepy and scared. Lydia hugged them tightly, her tears falling into their hair. "We'll be fine, baby," she whispered, trying to believe her own words. "We'll be just fine." Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, Lydia's heart broke. But deep inside that pain, something else began to form. A quiet strength, a promise to herself and her children. The camera lingers on her trembling face as she stares out the window. The woman who was just abandoned, standing in silence, her tears slowly giving way to resolve. Lydia and David met at university. She was studying nursing, and he was a business student with big dreams. Lydia was quiet, kind, and hardworking. David was charming, full of ideas, always talking about the future he would build. He told her that one day he would own a company and take her around the world. Lydia believed him. After graduation, life didn't turn out as simple as their dreams. They got married young, full of hope. Lydia paused her studies to help David while he searched for the right job. She worked small part-time jobs, selling clothes, doing data entry, and even working at a small clinic to make ends meet. When David struggled, she supported him. She paid rent when he couldn't. She encouraged him whenever he failed. She believed in his talent more than he did. "You'll make it one day," she would tell him with a smile. Years passed. David finally got a managerial job at a private firm. It was the opportunity he had always wanted. Lydia thought life was finally turning around. But soon everything changed. David started coming home late. When she asked, he would say he was networking. He spent weekends at parties and business dinners. He stopped talking to the kids. If anything went wrong at home, he blamed Lydia. "You don't understand ambition," he would say. "You're happy living small." Lydia tried to hold their family together. She cooked his favorite meals, stayed up waiting for him, and prayed for peace. But David had already drifted away. The love they once shared faded into arguments and silence. Then one rainy night he left, saying he needed to breathe. Days turned into weeks, then months. Lydia's world grew smaller. Rent was overdue. The bills piled up. Her two children, Ella and Caleb, needed school fees and food. She had no savings and no family nearby. The degree she once started seemed like a dream from another life. Every night, she would sit by the window, staring at the city lights, wondering how everything had fallen apart. Sometimes she cried silently so the children wouldn't hear. Then came Tessa, her loud, bold, and loyal friend. Tessa had known Lydia since university. When she found out about David leaving, she came straight to Lydia's house with bags of groceries and her usual bluntness. "Lydia," Tessa said, putting her hands on her hips, "you've carried that man for too long. Now it's time to carry yourself." Lydia sighed, her eyes red. I don't even know where to start, Tessa. Everything feels broken. Tessa smiled softly. Start with what you have, your hands, your mind, and your heart. That's more than enough. Those words stayed in Lydia's heart. The next morning, she woke up before dawn, made breakfast for the kids, and walked to a nearby clinic. It was small and crowded, but they needed help. The doctor was kind and offered her a position as an assistant. It wasn't much money, but it was something. Days turned into weeks. Lydia worked long hours, cleaning wounds, taking temperatures, helping patients. Sometimes she came home exhausted, but seeing her children sleeping peacefully reminded her why she kept going. At night, after putting them to bed, she would sit at the table with her old nursing textbooks. She read by candlelight, trying to remember everything she once learned. She told herself, I can still finish. I can still build a life for us. It wasn't easy. Some days, she cried in the bathroom, feeling the weight of loneliness, but slowly, she began to feel a quiet strength growing inside her. One evening, when Tessa visited again, she looked at Lydia proudly. You're glowing, my friend. You've changed. Lydia smiled tiredly. Maybe. I'm just trying to survive. Tessa shook her head. No, Lydia. You're not just surviving. You're rebuilding. Lydia looked at her reflection in the window that night, tired eyes, but a new spark inside them. She wasn't the same woman who had begged her husband to stay. She was learning to stand again, one step at a time. Life was still hard, but for the first time, Lydia felt a small flicker of hope. One hot afternoon. The clinic was unusually busy. Mothers with crying babies filled the waiting area, and Lydia moved from one patient to another without rest. Suddenly, she heard a loud crash outside, the sound of screeching tires and people shouting. She ran out quickly. A small crowd had gathered near the road. A little boy, no older than 7, lay on the ground unconscious. His bicycle was broken beside him, and a car had stopped nearby. Without wasting a second, Lydia pushed through the crowd. Please give me space, she shouted. She knelt beside the child, checking his pulse and breathing. His heartbeat was weak, and there was blood on his forehead. Someone call an ambulance, she said firmly. But when no one moved, she realized she had to act fast. She looked around and saw 2 men standing helplessly. You, she said, pointing. Help me carry him into the clinic. The men obeyed. Inside, Lydia cleaned his wound, checked his airway, and started basic treatment. Her hands moved quickly but gently. Sweat rolled down her forehead, but her focus never broke. After a few tense minutes, the boy began to breathe steadily. A tall man rushed in just then, panic written all over his face. My son. Is he okay? He cried. Lydia looked up. He's stable now, sir. We stopped the bleeding, but he'll need to rest and be checked at the hospital. The man held his child's hand, tears in his eyes. Thank you, he whispered. You saved him. Later that day, after the ambulance had taken the boy and calm returned, the man came back to the clinic. He was well dressed, wearing a fine suit, but his expression was humble and grateful. Mrs. Coleman, he said, I can't thank you enough. The doctors said your quick action saved my boy's life. Lydia smiled shyly. I just did what anyone would do. He shook his head. Not everyone would know what to do, or care enough to do it. He introduced himself as Mr. Henry Blake, a well-known businessman and philanthropist. He had built hospitals, schools, and health centers across the country. As he looked around the small, poorly equipped clinic, his brows furrowed. You're wasted here, Mrs. Coleman, he said honestly. You should be running a place, not just surviving in one. Lydia was surprised by his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. He stayed a while longer, asking about her life and her work. Lydia told him her story. How she once studied nursing but never finished because she had to support her husband. How her husband left, leaving her alone with 2 children. How she now worked here just to keep food on the table. Mr. Blake listened quietly, his eyes thoughtful. After a long pause, he said, You have something special, Lydia, strength and heart. People like you should never be forgotten. A week later, Mr. Blake returned with an offer that changed everything. He told her he wanted to sponsor her return to school, so she could complete her nursing degree. You have the talent, he said, and I have the means. Let's not waste either. Lydia was speechless. Tears filled her eyes. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say yes, he replied gently. Say you'll build the life you were meant to have. And she did. Lydia accepted his help, promising herself, I'll build something my children can be proud of. She began studying part-time while still working at the clinic. Her days were long, mornings at the clinic, evenings at school, nights helping her kids with homework. There were moments when she wanted to give up, but every time she saw her children's smiles, she kept going. Months turned into a year. Lydia's hard work caught everyone's attention. She graduated at the top of her class. Mr. Blake, who had followed her progress proudly, invited her to help manage a new community health project under his company's foundation. It was a dream Lydia never thought she'd live. She went from being a tired, struggling mother to a confident professional, trusted and respected by everyone around her. She dressed differently now, spoke with assurance, and carried herself with quiet grace. People looked up to her, not because of her beauty or wealth, but because of her strength. Every night, when she tucked her children into bed, she whispered, "We're getting there." And in her heart, she knew this was just the beginning of something greater. 2 years later, Lydia's life had completely changed. She had built something powerful, a foundation called the Coleman Health Foundation. She named it after her children, Ella and Caleb, not after her ex-husband. It was her way of giving meaning to their pain and turning it into hope for others. The foundation grew quickly. It partnered with hospitals and community clinics across Nigeria, offering free healthcare to single mothers and children who couldn't afford treatment. Lydia worked day and night to make sure no woman went through what she had faced: fear, hunger, and helplessness. Her story began spreading. Journalists came to interview her. Newspapers ran headlines like "From Abandoned Wife to Community Leader" and "Lydia Coleman, the Woman Changing Lives." Television stations invited her to speak about her journey. People admired her calm strength, her kindness, and her dedication. But while Lydia was rising, David's world was falling apart. After leaving his family, he had joined a big company where he thought success would make him happy. At first, he enjoyed the money and attention. He bought expensive clothes, threw parties, and bragged about his position. But his pride became his downfall. Rumors started spreading about misconduct and fraud in his office. David was accused of misusing company funds. After months of investigation, he was fired. His friends turned their backs on him, and his reputation was ruined. He tried to start again, but nothing worked. His savings ran out, and his apartment was too expensive to keep. The same people he once looked down on now avoided him. One Sunday afternoon, David attended a small family gathering. Everyone was talking and laughing, and the television was on in the background. Suddenly, a familiar voice filled the room. "Today we celebrate the incredible work of the Coleman Health Foundation, led by Mrs. Lydia Coleman," said the TV presenter. David froze. He turned to look. On the screen, Lydia stood at a podium, dressed in a beautiful suit, her face calm and confident. She spoke about healthcare, empowerment, and hope. People applauded her. David's mouth fell open. "That's Lydia," he whispered. His cousin looked at him in surprise. "You didn't know? She's doing amazing things. The First Lady even praised her foundation last month." David felt something heavy in his chest, a mix of shock, guilt, and jealousy. The woman he once called lazy and unambitious was now being celebrated nationwide. That night he couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, remembering her tears, her begging, her pain, and how he had walked away. The next day he tried to reach her. He called, but her number didn't go through. He sent messages, but there was no reply. He even emailed her foundation, pretending to be polite and professional. Still nothing. Lydia never responded. Days passed. David grew desperate. He wanted to see her, to apologize, to ask for forgiveness, or maybe just to feel relevant again in her life. Then he saw on social media that Lydia would be at a press event in Abuja, giving a talk about women's health. He decided to go. The event was crowded with journalists, doctors, and local leaders. Cameras flashed as Lydia walked to the stage. She spoke with confidence, her voice steady and full of emotion. When the speech ended, reporters surrounded her for interviews. Then, in the middle of the crowd, David appeared. He looked nervous and out of place in his wrinkled shirt. The cameras quickly turned toward him. "Lydia," he said softly, his voice trembling. "Please, I just want to talk." The crowd went silent. Reporters stared, whispering among themselves. Lydia paused, her face calm but unreadable. For a moment, their eyes met, his full of regret, hers full of quiet power. "Not here, David," she said firmly. Then after a brief pause she added, "Not ever." The cameras clicked rapidly, catching every second. Lydia turned away gracefully and continued answering questions. David stood frozen, embarrassed and lost, as people began to whisper his name. After that day, the story spread across social media, people praising Lydia for her strength and dignity. Some even recognized David as the man who once left her. The public admired her even more. For David, the humiliation was unbearable. He tried once more to call her, but she never answered. He even went to her foundation's office, but the guard stopped him. Sitting alone in a small rented room that night, David scrolled through photos of Lydia online, her smiling beside government officials, cutting ribbons at new clinic openings, speaking to crowds. He whispered to himself, "How did I lose her? How did I not see her worth?" But deep down he knew the truth. He hadn't just lost Lydia. He had lost the best part of himself when he walked away from her. Meanwhile, Lydia kept growing stronger. She had learned to forgive life, but not to go backward. Every success reminded her of how far she had come, from crying in the dark to shining in the light. And though she never said it out loud, she knew that the power had shifted forever. She was no longer the woman he left behind. She was the woman who rose without him. Weeks later, one quiet evening, Lydia was helping her children with their homework when she heard a knock at the door. It was soft at first, then louder. She frowned, not expecting anyone. When she opened the door, her breath caught for a moment. David stood there. He looked nothing like the man who had once walked out on her. His clothes were wrinkled, his shoes dirty, his face tired and hollow. The proud, confident man she once knew was gone. "David," she said quietly, surprised but calm. "What are you doing here?" He swallowed hard, his eyes full of shame. I lost everything, Lydia," he said in a broken voice. "My job, my apartment, even my car." Lydia crossed her arms, her expression steady. "You still have your pride though," she said softly. "I'm sure that's comforting." David looked down, unable to meet her eyes. He stepped inside without her invitation and stood awkwardly in the living room. He looked around at the clean, warm space, family photos on the wall, books neatly stacked, and laughter echoing faintly from the hallway. "This place, it feels so peaceful," he said, his voice trembling. "It's a home," Lydia replied simply. "Something you didn't value before." Then suddenly David dropped to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. "Please, Lydia," he begged. "Just let me come back. I was stupid. I didn't see what I had until it was gone. I thought I needed more, but the truth is, I already had everything when I had you." Lydia stood frozen for a moment. The sight of him kneeling, crying, might once have broken her heart, but now, it only reminded her of how far she had come. Before she could answer, she heard soft footsteps behind her. Ella and Caleb stood at the end of the hallway. Ella, now 10 years old, stared at her father with cold eyes. "Why are you here?" Ella asked sharply. David wiped his face and looked at her, his lips trembling. "Eshe, I'm your father. I just want to make things right." Ella's small hands clenched. "You left us when we needed you," she said quietly but firmly. "Mommy built all this without you." David's tears came harder. "I know, sweetheart. I was wrong. I thought I was doing what was best for me, but I hurt you. All of you." Lydia turned toward her children and smiled gently, her heart full of pride for them. Then she faced David again, her voice calm but strong. "When you walked out that night," she said slowly, "you left as a man who thought he was too good for us. Now you're here because you see what I built on my own. But David, I didn't build this for you to come back to." He shook his head desperately. "Please, Lydia, I'll do anything. I can help. I can start over. I just need another chance." She stepped closer, her expression firm. "You want to come back because I succeeded, not because you've changed. You didn't just leave a wife and kids, David. You left a future, a legacy. And now you're not worthy of it." She pointed to the door. "It's time for you to go." David didn't move. He just stayed there on the floor, sobbing like a broken man. "Lydia, please. I don't have anywhere else to go." Her eyes softened for a moment. Once, she might have felt sorry for him. Once she might have taken him back, but not anymore. She spoke gently. her voice steady and full of dignity. I hope one day you find peace, David. But it won't be here. Not in the home you abandoned. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving him kneeling in silence. Ella came to her side, holding her hand tightly. Are you okay, Mommy? She asked. Lydia smiled faintly. I am now, baby. I really am. Behind them, David finally stood, wiping his face. He looked around one last time. At the family that had moved on without him. At the life he could have had. Then slowly walked out the door. As the door closed, Lydia stood still, her heart calm and strong. The woman who once cried for him was gone. The woman standing there now was powerful, unshakable, and free. Time passes. Months turn into years, and Lydia's life blossoms in ways she once only dreamed of. The Coleman Health Foundation grows rapidly. New branches open in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. Newspapers and TV stations celebrate her story. The woman who turned pain into purpose. Everywhere she goes, people admire her kindness, her strength, and her calm confidence. She is no longer just David's ex-wife. She is Lydia Coleman, the woman who gave hope to hundreds of single mothers and children across Nigeria. In between her foundation work, Lydia also finishes nursing school, something she had once postponed because of her marriage. The day she graduates, she walks across the stage with her children cheering loudly from the front row. Her gown sways as she accepts her certificate. A tear slips down her cheek, but this time it's a tear of pride. She whispers, "This is for you, Ella. For you, Caleb." Later, during a big event celebrating her foundation's new expansion, hundreds of people fill the hall. Government officials, reporters, and families she has helped. The stage glows with light as Lydia steps up to the podium. She begins her speech with a smile. When I started this journey, I had nothing but my 2 children and a dream, she says softly. People told me I couldn't do it, that I was too broken, too small, too alone. But today we stand together. Proof that no woman is truly alone when she believes in herself. The crowd claps warmly. Cameras flash. At the very back of the room, a familiar face sits quietly. David. His once proud posture is gone. He looks older, thinner, and full of regret. He doesn't try to approach her. He just watches, his hands trembling slightly. Lydia sees him from the stage. For a moment, time freezes. Their eyes meet. But instead of anger or pain, Lydia feels peace. She continues her speech, her voice firm and graceful. To every woman who's been told she can't make it alone, your story isn't over until you write it. The hall erupts with applause. Some people rise to their feet, clapping and cheering. Lydia smiles through the noise, her heart full of gratitude. When the event ends, the crowd gathers around her, shaking her hand, congratulating her. She steps outside into the cool evening air, feeling light and free. Then she hears a quiet voice behind her. Lydia. It's David. He looks down, unable to meet her eyes. Thank you for not destroying me, he says softly. Lydia looks at him for a long moment, her expression calm and wise. You did that yourself, she replies gently. I just rebuilt what you broke. He nods slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. There's nothing more to say. He walks away quietly, his figure fading into the night. Lydia watches him go, then turns to see her children running toward her. Ella wraps her arms around her waist. Caleb holds her hand tightly. Mommy, everyone was clapping for you, Caleb says with a grin. Lydia laughs softly, hugging them both. They weren't just clapping for me, she says. They were clapping for us. As they walk toward their car, the city lights sparkle around them. Lydia feels a deep peace in her heart, not because she won, but because she healed. Her journey had started with heartbreak, but it ended with hope. And this time she knew no one could ever take that away from her again. Early morning sunlight fills Lydia's new home. The smell of pancakes drifts through the air as Ella and Caleb sit at the dining table, giggling over who gets the bigger piece. Lydia stands by the counter, watching them with a warm smile. The kitchen is bright and full of life, so different from the quiet, lonely place she once knew. Tessa walks in through the open door, holding a cup of coffee. Tessa. Who would have thought? From crying over bills to building an empire. Lydia laughs softly, shaking her head. Lydia. I just stopped waiting to be saved. They share a smile, the kind that comes from surviving storms together. Lydia's phone buzzes on the table. It's an email. A partnership offer from an international NGO that wants to work with her foundation. She stares at it for a moment, then closes the message and looks out the window. Outside, the sun glows over her garden. The world feels new again. She whispers to herself, her voice steady and peaceful. He left me with the kids, but gave me the reason to rise. Ella runs over, holding her hand. Caleb grabs the other. Together, they step outside, laughter echoing as they walk into the sunlight, stronger, freer, and full of hope. Clapperboard hi besties. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If Lydia's story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. Bye. Sparkling Heart.